And we're back.
Oh,
Howdy
oh my
ho,
gosh.
neighbor.
Halloween's over. It's done. It's November 2nd.
It is. It's Christmas time.
Ah, that's right. Guess what? Went to the supermarket and full blast. Here we go. On the first day of Christmas, my true love sent to
Was
me.
it? Was it
That's what they
already?
sang.
Turn your volume down just a dash. Just a dash. So okay. So Christmas stuff has already been out here since like September.
Biffer
It's
says, "Hey, Luke and Phil, hello."
What up, Biffer? How's it going, buddy? How you doing? Yeah, no, Christmas stuff has been out since September, which is mental. Like Halloween
That's
barely got
ridiculous.
like any attention. And they were promoting mince pies and you
Mulled
know
wine.
yeah, everything. It's all coming out. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think like Central London's like already decorated. There's this video going around where a Christmas decoration got loose and was like a big fake bauble was rolling down Tottenham Court Road and smashes into a pole in the silver uh, like kind of paper on it, just completely obliterates, and it's just this big white ball that kind of looks like a runaway moon. Um,
That should be their. That should be London's now. Was that in London?
it was, yeah,
That should be now their like classic imagery for Christmas in London.
right,
Smashing the bottle.
right. But yeah, so that was really funny. But no, it's like it's full on. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you
I
obviously
find
we
it.
we, we both come from the States a little bit, kind of. Um, so for us, there's still meant to be Thanksgiving in between. But in
That
Europe,
is not. Yeah, that's not. That's not a
mm,
thing, obviously, and it never should be.
yeah,
Um, well, what I want to say is this is too soon. It's just too soon. I,
mm,
I feel like every passing year that I'm alive, I notice Christmas encroaching ever closer to not just Halloween, but pre-Halloween, where they would start putting, decking the halls of many store just so they
yes,
can get people to buy Christmas crap. And I love Christmas, but there's a time and place for it, and the time is definitely not after summer. You wait a little bit. You chill. That's what
uh,
I think. And I've
yeah,
always felt this kind of slightly disgusted by the rampant consumeristic, tendrils that continue to envelop a lot of businesses and social life surrounding the holidays. Maybe,
yes.
maybe I'm too deep there, but
I mean, I sort of, I guess I sort of wish that there was like a beat between,
yeah.
Halloween and Christmas. It would be nice, um, but alas, we do not get that.
Well, Biffer is already going in with the topic, but I was hoping we would ask Biffer, who is on here right now. Oh, geez, I can actually hear myself through your speakers.
Can you?
Um, but how is it over there, wherever you live? How do you feel
Yes.
about Christmas coming
Yes.
in too soon? Because I'm whiplash,
Exactly.
seasonal whiplash.
Exactly. But no, we will be coming on to the topic of Doctor Who shortly. We'll just give people, anyone who might straggle in, just a little bit more time uh, before we dive into that particular topic. But so, how was your Halloween night, Phil? What did
My
you do?
Halloween night comprised of me taking my bike. Not my bike. I use a rental bike. They have a citywide rental bike that Luke, you probably know in London they have those as
Hmm.
well. And my quest has always been with rental bikes to go on the app and look for the e-bikes, the ones that are electric, right? So it's a much more fun experience zipping away on the electric bikes because they're a lot faster and you exert less energy.
Yes.
So it's always been like open the app, see where the electric bikes are and see where I can, looking for routes to take to get to the bike. But
Right.
it's not just the bike, it's also the battery percentage cuz they need to build more recharge stations because many of the times, like I think 2 out of 10 of them are fully recharged
Right. Oh, that's
citywide.
annoying. Right. Right. Right.
And so then I have to pick that one because that's the one I want. So I organize a route to get there. Sometimes it would take half an hour. Sometimes it would take an hour, but the adventure is always there. Like, and I usually go like at 11 or
Right. So your
12.
Halloween night was spent cycling around
There you go.
your
Trying to
hometown.
see how it is because I live in Croatia. Trying to see how it is and how
Mm,
much Halloween has encroached Croatia because, of course, being Europe, Halloween is an American holiday,
true.
more or less.
True.
And every year, it's been getting more and more
Yes.
prominent
Yes.
around here.
Biffer says that he's from NYC, which is cool. And he's too old for Christmas, and Christmas is for kids. um,
Should
I
write
mean,
the
to
new
some degree,
Christmas
like
Carol.
I understand what you're saying. With that, I love Christmas, but there's a certain thing about Christmas that I love. And the thing that I love about Christmas is mostly a little bit of nostalgia, which is watching a handful of Christmas films that I like. Things like A Christmas Story, Nightmare Before Christmas, Home Alone, the classic Rudolph and Frosty the Snowman and stuff like that. You know,
Perfect American
The
catalog.
Grinch Who Stole Christmas, but the cartoon
Yeah.
narrated by Boris Karloff,
Oh, it
Frankenstein.
was.
You know, that kind of stuff. So I'm kind of like that's that. I love to watch those things, but then I also love like the Christmas meal, like having the meal together.
Absolutely. Love
And
that.
and I guess one of my traditions that I started when I moved to the UK was listening to the Queen's speech. Um, I did that every year. Not every year. I did it almost every year from about 2011. And I would always, as you know, take goofy pictures of me in front of the camera, in front of the screen, joking that it was a Skype call with the
Skype call.
Queen.
I loved it. Every
Started with
10
started with
years.
Skype and then went to FaceTime because Skype, obviously went the way of the dodo. Oh well. Um,
Yeah.
but now the Queen is gone, and I really don't think I'm going to do it with Charles because I just don't know if I care enough.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know.
it was
I
fun with
don't
the Queen, but
we don't know if he cares about you enough to strike up that FaceTime call either.
exactly,
They're
exactly.
two different people.
Um,
I was going to
Biffer,
say though, no,
yes.
go on.
I was
Okay,
going to say
well,
Biffer says he goes to the theater on Christmas. That's
that's an
fair enough.
interesting. That is a. I wasn't gonna say habit, but I mean that is kind of a tradition that I've seen other people do. Like you go to the cinema because usually, more often than not, there's always a kind of special movie that plays on December 25th. Prominently, the one that I remember the most in my head, I go back to every time because I know, is Alien versus Predator 2 Requiem that came out on Christmas Day.
Yes, I do remember that.
I didn't see it on Christmas Day. I've never watched a movie on Christmas Day, like in a cinema.
No, I haven't either. I haven't
Yeah.
either. No, 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 no.
But the good thing is that in Croatia, on Boxing Day, the 26th of December 2003, this little movie called The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King premiered. That was an eventful time in my youth. That was like that's the kind of stuff that I remember for Christmas.
Yes,
Like it's
yeah.
Lord of the Rings. It's that kind of early 2000s memories that are the biggest ones in my head, more so than when I was a kid. And I don't know why,
Interesting.
because
Interesting.
as a kid we had normal, wonderful traditional Christmases
Yeah.
every year. But for me, it's like Christmas.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I definitely feel that way with Lord of the Rings, but like, I really strongly associate that with my teenage years. I'm like, it's still a big part of Christmas and stuff like that, but that's very much, yeah, the teenage years.
It's curious. I just my memories of like Christmases past, uh, not as like fond. I mean everyone has little bits and pieces, but for me it's not like Luke. Luke has a very good, substantial memory of all the nostalgia, but not for me so much.
Yeah.
Other than the early 2000s, which is curious.
Mm. I don't know. Yeah, I can't fully explain it. I just have a lot of strong memories associated to Christmas more than any other holiday, I think. But yeah, so this week.
Halloween. No, Halloween. Oh, we're gonna talk
Oh
about
yes,
Halloween.
Halloween. Halloween.
It ended and it was very uneventful because I went and took my bike and I was zipping across Zagreb. Like I went to the center. There was nothing Nothing special. Nothing
That
to
is a
see,
shame.
except it was a very foggy evening. Very foggy.
Ah, I mean, we did have a lot of trick or treaters, so our night was spent answering the doorbell and giving kids candy, which was kind of fun at times. There were a group of kids who I put. We had like two pumpkins
Mm-hmm.
outside. One was carved like Harry Potter, and one was carved like Jack Skellington.
Oh, it
And
was Harry
then
Potter.
on
I didn't know
the
that.
front door, I had fake cobweb strewn over it with little spiders hanging in it, and then from the light that hangs in front of our door, we hung spiders off of with fake web hanging down. And then I had a black light that shone down the hallway through the door, so as kids approached, they could see like this kind of purple glow coming out of the house. This kind of purple and green glow coming out of the house, so it had a creepy vibe. One kid was apparently too scared to come to the door alone, so their
Mm.
parents said, which is quite funny. And other apparently other kids said they enjoyed it as well, which
Well,
was
that's
also
good.
nice. Um, but
Trick or treating.
yeah, yeah, it was good. It was good fun, but I'm happy that it's over. And there's always that worry that you're not gonna have enough candy for these little kids. Always a
Yeah.
worry. But luckily we had like just enough. We have a little bit amount left over, but not enough that I could say is like indulge worthy. I don't think.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it was good times. Good times. Yeah, so that was fun. So let's jump to the topic of the night.
You want to have like a little bumper that goes topic of the night. Doo, 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 pew,
Something like
pew.
that. Um, Doctor Who. There's more to say. I have more to say. This is also like Marvel. I have sort of endless things to say about Doctor Who. Um,
Say them. Say them.
so the big news is that Doctor Who is the BBC have gone into a partnership to allow Disney Plus to stream Doctor Who from 2023, from the 60th anniversary special onwards. Disney have the streaming rights for Doctor Who outside of Britain, right?
Right.
Um, it's all very interesting. There's a lot of interesting changes that are happening with the show now that Russell T Davies is back. For one, his company Bad Wolf has taken over the production of the show, which is now it's a Sony based company, and now the streaming rights have gone to Disney. And the interesting thing with the Disney stuff is there was a headline in the Telegraph that called it an American makeover, right?
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Yes, and that instantly got my back up, and I was like, "Oh God!" Like we did our review of The Power of the Doctor, and I was sort of interested to see what was going to happen next. Um, as I was getting, I kind of got the impression that Russell T Davies bringing David Tennant back for 3 episodes of David Tennant.
Yeah.
Um,
After
yeah,
the
is
previous
is a
Doctor.
soft reboot. It's almost like I get the impression that they're trying to pretend like after that this is going to be in a way David Tennant's final run, right? We're
I
we're
mean,
coming up to the new end of David Tennant, like as in everything that happened between his original regeneration into Matt Smith and so on is sort of like don't pay attention to that. We're back to David Tennant. We're back to the thing that everyone loved the most. Start from here again. A soft reboot almost, but starting from this 10th Doctor that's now the 14th Doctor. Um, so I found that interesting. Um, but then of course there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about that. But the first thing I
I
want to
want to
kind of
know. I
the
want to
first
know
thing I
about
want to
these
kind
things.
of go on.
I want to know about these things because I've not seen the 10th Doctor in his 10th Doctor episodes.
Oh, you've never done? Okay, yeah.
No,
Uh,
but my younger brother Jake has,
uh,
and he's watched the entire David Tennant run. I
yes,
haven't.
Yes, yes.
He seems to be a
Um,
favorite.
Now, this is I want to start by looking at the logo, right? So I've got the original logo up here. This is from the 70s, right?
Very 70s, yeah.
This is from the 70s. This is John Pertwee's main logo, and it lasts for a while, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Disney have not Disney, but the new production have updated this particular logo, and I'm interested to know your thoughts on it. So this is the classic one. Everyone knows this one quite well, and then this is the new one.
Oh, geez, when you put it together like that, because I remember seeing the new one before, and I'm like, well, that's just the 70s logo again. Because I haven't seen the 70s show, but I'm familiar with the 70s logo because I've seen it quite a few times in my life. And yeah, now that could you like kind of like go back and forth real quick just to kind of yeah, it's okay. It's Disneyfied somehow.
Well, that's exactly it. You know, I looked at that, and first people were complaining that it was like Paw Patrol,
Ah!
which I find really funny. And when you see this kind of the yellow outline, you can kind of
Yes.
see it. This yellow, it's a
Yeah.
bit like that. It's a
Yeah.
bit like that. It's a bit cheesy, but I looked at this and I thought this looks like a cheap, like a when you're looking for like a soft, kid friendly version of something. Like this looks like
Yeah.
the kid friendly version,
The
and of
Lego
course
Duplo. The Disney. They have the. I bet they use their in-house designers, like the ones who are doing the logos for these things to do Doctor Who and make like upgrade it.
maybe. I mean, but you look at this particular stuff, and there are similarities in this sort of bubbled, you know,
Yeah.
raised stuff,
You're
shadowed.
watching Disney Channel.
Yes, and I look
Doctor
at
Who's
this.
next.
Yes, and I look at this, and I'm like, oh god, this
Yeah.
is this is it's weird because it's this logo, yet somehow when I see it like this, it's terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's that. It's not
It's like a
just the
dog chew
yellow.
toy.
Yes, it's not just the yellow outline, but I also think that they beveled all the shapes, the
Yeah,
edges,
yeah.
especially with Doctor. It looks like some kind of pet store, and I keep reading Dogter because it looks like it does look like
Doctor.
Paw Patrol. Go back to Paw Patrol. Let's see that. Let's see the glorious image. Yeah, man. There you go.
It's oof. I saw that and I was like, oh, this is not
It's
good.
kind of missing the point.
I feel like it is. I feel like it's this is trying to be, and of course,
You
zing,
got to put that in, yeah.
it is Disneyfied, and I think this is the first signs. uh, it might sound hyperbolic, but I'm like, this sounds like this is the first signs of trouble. Just
Here
just in the
comes
logo.
trouble.
Sometimes I think you can look at a logo and be like, oh, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying the previous logos have been great. I mean, I think the David Tennant era logo is
Oh, we
is
should look at all those other
is
ones.
not very good. I can
I
find
do
it.
like the 2011 one.
Yes,
The one with Matt Smith, I think that one was quite solid because I think that they had that tall look and they kind of incorporated the TARDIS into it. The worst one I think is the 2005 one, the one with maybe
yes,
that's the one with David Tennant too, but it's
that
like
is the one.
the orange one. Oh, that was so 2005. It hurts. My gosh.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Well, this
What does
this.
Biffer think? We don't have a guest today, so come on. Come on.
Yeah, you're talking about this one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I never liked that logo
Oi,
either.
oi, oi, oi,
I
oi.
thought that was lame, but I did always like this one.
This one's good. That one's solid, man.
Yeah, I was always a fan of this particular logo. I think that one I think
Did
that
it,
one really
did it,
worked.
did it, did it.
So let's just Bifford does say said something in the chat. He says, I wish I fell into a coma in 2006 and woke up in 2022 and found out David Tennant is still the Doctor. Um, Was it two?
It
It
was
wasn't
because I went
2000. It wasn't
I
2006
went
when
on
he.
Wikipedia before, like after we talked about Doctor Who, and I checked. That's when
He,
David Tennant.
it's not when he quit though.
No, no, no. He was still running. So if you fell in a coma after watching a few David Tennant episodes and woke up in 2020, you'd be like, David Tennant's still the Doctor.
I mean, at least fall into a coma like midway through the fourth season, so that like you
At
see
least
more
do
than
that.
you see a little bit more. You can even like get through the whole fourth season and then like maybe fall into a coma during the those last few specials that David Tennant had. That would be acceptable, because the specials prior to his regeneration aren't super great. But yeah, I mean, people love him. He is the best. Um, but yeah, so the Telegraph article says so many things that really get me nervous about the future of Doctor Who now. It really does. One of the first lines that struck me was that they say Disney is now poised to give the show blockbuster backing.
Right. A lot of people think that this is a good thing because it's like, can you imagine seeing the TARDIS with like Hollywood era, like Hollywood style budget behind it? Like seeing the control room.
I suppose my question is, does Doctor Who need blockbuster backing? It's a television show. It's not a blockbuster. It's not a movie. It's a TV show. It's this little science fiction TV show. Does it need to be blockbustery? So there was a gimmick in season 8, I think it was, or yeah, let me see. No, season 7, where Stephen Moffat was he was saying each episode was a quote unquote blockbuster. It was like a mini movie, as he tried to call it, right?
Very long. I
And
remember each episode being quite long though.
well, I mean, they were the same length of time. They didn't extend.
No, they were like an hour each, weren't they?
But the show's always an hour. The show has always been an hour,
Oh.
always.
Huh. Okay.
Um, but they would do like gimmicks like dinosaurs on a plane, that kind of stuff, right? Um, the excuse was we're gonna try and Hollywood Doctor Who, and they tried it, and it didn't really work. And I guess they didn't have the BBC didn't have the money or the backing to like full on like blow up with the
Well, that's what
production
I'm
value
saying.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have to admit, most of Moffat's era stuff looked really good. Like,
I mean, yeah, compared to when the 10th Doctor retired.
yeah, I mean there were some really bad stuff even during Tennant's visual stuff that looked quite lame during Tennant's era. But there were also some really great stuff. But there was definitely a a kick in the butt with the third with when Moffat came into power of Doctor Who. Everything looked really good and looked really solid. So
It looked solid, but what was the context behind each episode? There weren't dinosaurs on a plane necessarily in every episode, right?
no, no, and I think that's the thing is people think of Doctor Who and they think of the TARDIS, they think of space, they think of time and space, they think of time
Yeah.
travel, and they think, oh, that needs to be. They
Well, I
think
think
of
of yeah, time
Daleks,
travel. Yeah.
they think of Daleks, they think of explosions, and it's like, no, actually, like not every episode has to be like that. Like I said, one of the best episodes is Vincent and the Doctor, where we never see the monster. The monster's invisible, and it's a cheap trick so that they don't have to spend money on the monster, and that's absolutely fine because the power of the story carried the audience through. It wasn't gimmicks, it wasn't special effects, it wasn't blockbuster backing, but strong storytelling that kept me interested. So when things are like, oh, we're gonna it's gonna be powered by Hollywood and special effects isn't good storytelling. It's why I don't give a shit about Avatar.
Yeah, Avatar. That's coming out. I forgot. The trailer came out
Exactly.
today, didn't it?
Avatar 2 is coming out, and who gives a shit? Who gives a crap? You know what I mean? Like, everyone's like, oh, but did you see it in 3D? No, I watched it at home on my laptop. Oh, yeah, that's not the way to see it. No, if the story is good, I should still enjoy it regardless. Oh, but you gotta
Yeah.
see the special effects. I don't care about the special effects.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Well, I'm just wondering about Doctor Who being, because I can't see much difference other than maybe they can go on different locations for real this time. Even though they kind of have, right? They went to Nevada once, wasn't it?
Well, they've done that quite a bit. They've definitely gone to various places a couple times in the States, but mostly they've gone in various places in Europe. I mean, they filmed in Croatia, they filmed in Spain, they filmed in
Trigger. Right.
all sorts of places for the show. Biffer says that my favorite Doctor Who episodes um, is Blink with Carrie Mulligan. Yeah, that was a really good one. And adipose, the weight loss pill turns fat into a cute animal. Yes, I remember that. Yes, yeah,
I
that
don't know
one.
any of this stuff.
Yeah,
What are
well,
you talking
yeah,
about?
we know you don't need to caveat that every time. Go watch Doctor Who. Educate yourself, boy. Um,
Educate yourself.
but no, Blink was a great one, and that's another like the Weeping Angels are great.
Yeah, well, that's another thing that was very smart because you don't need a budget for that either.
No, you need a small budget, but they're great. They're just stone angels
Yeah.
that you don't ever have to see them move, and it's wonderful. Like it's just that jumps of it's great. But you know what they're going to do with this stuff. They're going to hyper the hyper effects the Daleks. They're going to hyper effects the Cybermen. Everything is going to be they're going to think, oh, we got the money, we got the budget.
But
Let's
it's
put
still
as
a
much.
TV show.
Say again.
But it's still going to be a TV show.
Yes, yes. And so I think what worries me, like I said, is it's the fact that they're kicking off this discussion with the fact that they're like, oh, we have so much more money now to put into this show, so that means it's going to be better. And I'm like, no,
Who
that
says it's going to be better? Who says this?
the article, you
The
know,
article sucks.
yes, but that's my point. Is these articles are boasting the fact that, hey, Doctor Who's getting all this money. It's in partnership with Disney. Disney means it's going to have more money to make better looking episodes. Da 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 da. And it's like, well, all you're talking about is looking better. You're not talking about it actually being better. You're not talking about how this is going to enhance the storytelling of it. This isn't talking about how you're going to bring in grade A science fiction writers who are going to craft incredible stories that are going to be timeless Doctor Who stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, oh, this is going to look better. But I don't know. I don't think it will. The other thing they say in this article is that the American corporation, Disney, will have a say in creative decisions. That is
But
disturbing.
why? Why?
That is
Wow. I
disturbing.
mean, of course, yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, if
come
you
on.
think about it,
You don't
Disney
think
have Disney have Star Wars by the balls. They
they've
have
ruined Star
they
Wars?
have Marvel by the balls. They have Pixar by the balls.
That's a sinister laugh.
Now they have Doctor Who by the balls
I mean, at least they don't
because
own Doctor Who.
they don't own it. No, but when you make a deal with the devil, who has the real power here? You know what I mean? Like who is bigger? Russell
Who?
T Davies or Mickey Mouse?
I mean, Mickey Mouse is a mouse, isn't he? He's kind of small.
You know, it's I don't know. I think the idea of them having control over this show that has been predominantly a British made show for 60 years, now getting this influx, this injection of American money, and being creatively manipulated by arguably the most creatively bankrupt studio in the world
Yeah, they're really
is
bad.
scary.
I mean, like, imagine what it's become. What has it become?
Well, I mean, think about it. What you think about what have Disney done? Just even with like Marvel. I mean, straight out the gate when they took over Marvel, Iron Man 2 was ruined. They wouldn't allow Tony Stark to have his alcoholic storyline. It had to be turned
Yeah,
into a
that
joke.
was.
Everything was turned into a joke, into a gimmick, and it was completely useless. You think about what their live action remakes that they've been doing. None of that has any sort of creative integrity whatsoever. It's just we need to pump these things out because this is easy money. This is going to nostalgia bait the adults who now have kids, and it will, get new kids to watch this stuff as opposed to just doing something new. It's just lazy, absolutely
There's nothing.
lazy.
Yeah, everything that is new has never. Yeah, I'm. I. What can we do about this, Luke? What can we? What can we do about
There's nothing we can do.
this?
We can criticize. That's what we can do. Um, I mean, it's interesting because they do say that Russell T Davies will retain overall creative. He will retain the overall creative vision for the program, but it is understood the corporate might of Disney will give the show the vast budget beyond the BBC's means. I mean, the BBC is a 100-year-old organization.
So is
Are,
Disney.
are we going to pretend like the BBC doesn't have a good amount of money in its bank account? Come on, come on. Allowing
Well, I
for more
mean,
cinematic production values and more stars.
you mean like
This week on Doctor Who, we have Robert Pattinson. So here's the thing: when it comes to this line about vast budgets beyond the BBC's means, and for more cinematic productions, again, does Doctor Who need to be cinematic? There's this false idea that everything needs to be quote unquote cinematic, and I don't think people understand what they mean by that. They I think they
they
see it as
seriously
like
don't know
Doctor
what they're
Who needs to
talking
be
about?
Star Trek or it needs to be Star Wars or something along those lines, and it really doesn't. Doctor Who isn't at its best when it's doing big grand things. It's at its best when it's small scale. You know, like the Doctor is stuck in 1914, right before the First World War, and he has no memory of himself because
He
these
just has a
alien
gun,
monsters, yeah, these
and
alien
the
monsters are trying to find him and kill him, and so he's had to disguise himself as a human and erase his memory. And the only person who knows who he is his companion.
is the Duke,
No,
Archduke Ferdinand.
no, is his companion. This is
Is
a
this a
legit
real
episode.
story?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I thought you were
yeah.
making something up, and I was like,
No,
dude, he can be
no.
the one killing. He can be the one starting World War One.
Yeah, no. And that's a wonderful small scale story about the Doctor living in this moment and the repercussions of this. It's not about big grand stuff. It's that's the stuff where Doctor Who shines,
But what's the
not when
big
he's
grand
out.
stuff they want to do? I still don't understand. Other than just traveling into different locations that they can probably do with the budget, what else are they gonna do with the story? What's gonna enhance the show?
Well, I mean, the other thing that's quite funny to me is that they say Disney's going to help make it more cinematic, but what the fuck was cinematic about She-Hulk?
See, that's a very good point.
What was cinematic about Obi-Wan?
Oh, geez, dude, Obi-Wan hurts my soul. Like, whenever I think of it again, I just think of how inept the entire show was.
What was cinematic
There's
about
nothing
Boba Fett?
cinematic about it. Boba Fett, and it was directed by Robert Rodriguez for the most time, I think, and it was so bad. It didn't feel like a movie at all. It was terrible.
No. So Biffer says Disney doesn't own Dragon Ball, but they bought their shows too. Well,
I was looking at that right now, and it seems it's because of Fox, like 20th Century Fox, right? Because they
mm,
had the rights to make Dragon Ball movies.
mm,
Because they made one.
yes,
It was it was great. No, it wasn't great.
no,
And so I guess the rights are still within their means for a couple more years or something. I don't
right,
know
right, right, right.
to do that.
I mean, buying the rights to make movies is very different to having creative input in an
Also
ongoing
true.
show that you've never had creative input on. This isn't, this is what is nerve wracking is it's like, well, Disney has its own set of goals and agenda, and do we want this. I mean, again, you look at Marvel. What has Disney done with Marvel and Star Wars? Like nothing means anything.
No,
Like
absolutely not.
there's no sense of real danger, there's no sense of repercussion, there's no sense of jeopardy in any of these franchises because no one's ever really gone.
They'd bring them back and they're like, no one's ever really gone.
And in a sense, we're getting the same thing with David Tennant.
That's the that's
You
kind of
know,
it, isn't it?
it's a gimmick. And this is what does also what worries me about this next stage in Doctor Who. It's like, well, you're starting off with a gimmick because you know something hasn't gone right. And you're now adding to this gimmick with a corporate gimmick of teaming up with
Oh,
Disney
yeah.
Plus.
Yeah.
And them having creative input is frightening because their Star Wars content sucks. Their Marvel content sucks. The Disney Plus originals suck. Like I have Disney Plus, hands up, I got it. But the only thing I watch on there is old stuff, is old Fox stuff.
Like
You
The
know,
Simpsons.
Simpsons,
That's what I use it for, Disney Plus.
Futurama, you know, Alien, those movies, the Fox stuff. Like I don't watch anything that's Disney. And we've tried a few Disney Plus originals, and they've all sucked. Um, so it's like what. I don't want their creative input in Doctor Who. You haven't produced anything that's given me any faith in your ability.
But they
The
can make them
movies.
cinematic with the money. Me.
Well, yeah, and it's like, yeah, sure, you're gonna put Doctor Who in one of those big rooms that have that round, you know,
Oh,
landscape.
that's yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what they're going to do. Again, that's what they're going to do. They're going to do things like that. And frankly, I think you can see it. I think in that one shot that they got of the new Doctor, where he's standing against a
Oh,
cloudy
that was so
sky.
bad, dude. That
You know,
was
that's what it looked like. It looked like he was standing in that kind of room. Um, but the other thing is like with this whole like stars stuff is like I don't need
you
gimmicks
don't
of
need them. These are gimmicks. These are all
hmm,
gimmicks. Yeah. It's
yeah,
so funny how many people just keep associating big companies like Disney. Oh, if Disney gets it, then it's going to be so good.
yes, yes,
Or if there's stars, it's going to be great.
right,
Think of what you're saying. Like this has been my problem every time someone wants to talk to me about a movie or developing films or talking about like what movies would be great to do. Every time this happens, I always, especially when they say, "Who would you cast in a movie you want to make?" And I'm like, "The hell do I know? We're gonna cast and we're gonna find out." It's such a
yeah,
boring answer, but
yeah,
for me, the importance is the story. We're telling the story in a way that we can tell it. So it doesn't matter if it's Disney. It doesn't matter if it's how many stars we get. It doesn't matter if our budget is big. I mean, it matters practically speaking, right? Based on what we want to do. But the context is, what are you gonna do with it? I don't know. I'm just
yeah.
trailing off a bit,
I
but
mean,
yeah,
I don't think they're gonna do anything with it. I really don't. I think it's just gonna
it's not gonna look any different. That's kind of how
no,
I'm predicting it.
no. There's nothing new that you can do with Doctor Who. It's as much as I love it's tired, and I would love for it to take a pause. Bibber says you can ask your politicians to enforce the monopoly laws. I mean,
Well, I
that
would
would
love
that would
to.
be that'd be great, but you know, ugh. He also says Doctor Who could be like Valerian and introduce new alien races per show. I mean, it's possible, but then Doctor Who isn't Star Trek. Star Trek was really great about strange, exploring strange new worlds and boldly going and learning about the human condition through other cultures that are kind of different to ours, or who are developing and going through similar stages of problems that the human race has gone through. But Doctor Who isn't totally like that. It's not really about new alien races per episode. It's got its monsters, and things like that, and every episode has some sort of monster, and there are new people introduced every episode, but that in and of itself isn't really a groundbreaking idea for Doctor Who, you know. Um,
What do
so
you
so I don't
feel
know.
to you, Luke? Let me ask you.
Mm.
What do you feel is Doctor Who? Like, what is Doctor Who? Like, in essence, if you would explain to somebody who's never seen it, like me. I mean, I have, but you know what I mean. Like, how would
Well,
you? Because like you said, it's not about the aliens. It's not about Strange New Worlds. That's not the focal point.
mm.
What would you say?
I mean, the show is about. I guess it's about adventure, really. You know,
Yeah.
it's about going out and to some degree exploring the universe, but essentially it's sort of a show about finding yourself. I mean, the Doctor leaves Gallifrey, runs away from Gallifrey as a 400-year-old man because he's going off to find himself and have adventures. He goes off with his granddaughter. And they it's a story of learning who you are.
Mm.
And learning who you are against the background of the people or races, aliens that you encounter. You know, it's a and to some degree, it's a morality play. It's it originally was the kind of original inception of it was to be educational, where
Mm-hmm.
as the Doctor traveled through time and space, there would be moments of revisiting periods of history that would be to some
Mm.
degree, educational. Um, and I think Doctor Who's sort of always had that. Sometimes it's not been handled as well, and I think the Jodie Whittaker era is an example of it being not handled, that stuff not being handled super great. Um, Probably the last couple of seasons of Peter Capaldi as well, as much as I love him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but I mean, it's that's how I would describe it. This
Okay.
this 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 man who is the last of his kind, trying to find himself and trying to do good in the universe. You know,
Helping others
yeah,
with his
you know.
powers.
He doesn't have powers, but
He's a Time Lord. Come on.
he doesn't have power though. He doesn't have powers. He's not. He does not. He's not super powered.
He has like 4 hearts, doesn't he?
He's two hearts, but that's not superpower.
Okay.
He doesn't
Okay,
have.
that's
He's
fine.
intelligent, you know,
That's a superpower.
and things like that. But it's
So's
not.
autism in The Predator.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. So yeah. Anyway. So then the article goes on to say the BBC will retain ultimate editorial control of future series. The Telegraph understands, so the tone and content of the show may not deviate dramatically from the canon of Doctor Who. Now, that cracked me up because, I mean, to not deviate from the canon is rich, because
Huh. Huh.
Chibnall has destroyed Doctor Who canon with the
Right.
Timeless Child by adding these other regenerations prior to William Hartnell, potentially suggesting there's regenerations in between other Doctors. I mean, uh, uh, Stephen
Such a
Moffat did it.
fanfic thing to do.
Yes, it is. Stephen Moffat did it first with the War Doctor, and I've never liked it. This, so
Even that's the thing. See, here's the thing, everybody. Like, if Luke's saying he doesn't even like the War Doctor, even though he was played by William Hurt. No, not wrong Hurt. Jonathan. No,
John
which
Hurt.
Hurt was it? John
John
Hurt.
Hurt.
Yes. I mean, there's some integrity that you need to have with these things, even if there's cool stars and actors
Yeah.
working on.
Yeah, I really, the War Doctor just doesn't do it for me. I look at that whole Day of the Doctor and I'm like, why are you not using Paul McGann? Why are you not using the Eighth Doctor for this? This should just be the Eighth Doctor. This doesn't need to be some made up Doctor. I don't get it. I really, yeah. So when they talk about making sure canon is upheld. I'm like, what? I think that's bullshit because I think we've seen enough in the last 4 years or so, or 5 years or more, that Doctor Who canon isn't even being respected by the BBC. So I don't trust that it will continue to be respected. And I certainly do not trust. I mean, when has Disney ever respected Marvel or Star Wars canon?
Hmm.
Like
I mean, that's a good point.
Obi Wan completely shatters A New Hope.
It does. It does.
Like the idea that Princess Leia and Obi Wan have an adventure together
I
ten
didn't even think
years,
about that. That's not even what I thought about. But oh
10
Lord.
years before A New Hope, and then she sees him die, and then all she does is go to Luke like, "Oh, I'm sorry about your friend." And she shows no emotion because she doesn't know the guy. Because she doesn't know the guy.
She doesn't know the guy, especially when she like, yeah, yeah, right. And everyone who's making up excuses, just go in your corner. Just fine. Just think that way if you want.
Yeah, and so it's like Disney doesn't respect the canon of the things that they own.
I wasn't even thinking of that. I was thinking of the moment where
What?
Obi-Wan had a clear advantage to just kill Darth Vader then and there, knowing full well 100% that he's not Anakin anymore. He lets him
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
Lets him go. Obi-Wan, you villain.
I mean, yeah. The whole thing was just, So no. So when you say stuff like that, I'm like, shut up, shut up. What it reminds me of is it reminds me of how I see this going. Is it reminds me of South Park. Um, there, there's an episode called "Banned in China" where
I need to see
one
that.
what happens is basically Stan's dad Randy makes a deal with China to kind of sell his weed and stuff like that. Um, but in the course of the episode, his son Stan has a little metal band that gets a deal, but the deal has implications, and the implications is that their content is going to be monitored by Chinese censors. And there's this funny moment where Stan is sitting there trying to write a song, and this censor is behind him walking back and forth, and every time he writes a few bits, the guy looks over his shoulder and like erases out and then writes in what he wants, right?
Oh,
And I'm like, this is exactly what's going to happen with Doctor Who. Like, I'm sorry, I love Russell T Davies, but he is not bigger than Disney. And the fact that you've made a deal with the devil means that they're going to have their grimy little mitts all over this show, because this is, Doctor Who is a mega franchise. I mean, there is no way that back in Moffat's era that the BBC would have done a deal like this. Because when Moffat took over, when Matt Smith became the new Doctor, that show was everywhere. It was huge
I
and
remember that. It was massive in the mid
huge.
2010s.
Yes, huge. I mean, nowhere was without Doctor Who during that time. Nowhere. And this is I've lost the thing. Yeah, so this is like this is desperate because you need to get your show in front of people, and your numbers have dwindled so much that you're willing to make this deal with the devil and get your show you know back in sectors that it hasn't been in for very very long time. um because they're babbling on about how joining Disney is going to elevate the show to greater heights and reach new audiences. And I'm like, really? Is it?
Yeah, is it? Just like all the
um
other shows that are on Disney Plus that I'm assuming not many people watch because I definitely don't look at them.
I mean, I said, as hypocritical as it is, I do have Disney Plus, but again, I watch it for the Fox content. I watch it for all the old stuff that's good. I don't watch it for anything Disney related or Marvel related, or I mean, I guess that's not entirely true, because obviously I watched Obi-Wan and criticized it a little bit, but like, in terms of their blockbuster quality, who the hell is talking about Andor?
I know.
Andor's still on. It's still going. And no one's talking about it.
I know, right? I stopped when we stopped for our podcast.
Yeah. I mean, after like what, episode 4? It was
Yeah,
nothing.
3 actually.
I think I stuck with through to 4.
Really? Nothing else
Yeah.
happens in 4.
And then I tuned out, and I was like, nope. Nope, 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 nope. Because I released the first episodes in one go, and then I watched the fourth one, and it's like, yeah, some of the show looked good, but the story was terrible, and it's like
Story was really slow.
yeah, you're pouring money into this, but like, it's not producing a better story. Um, yeah. So then in another article, it's the president of Disney Plus said that the show would
What's his
be
name?
it's a
Who do we?
lady named Alyssa Bowen.
Alyssa Bowen.
So the show would be introduced to the next generation of audiences and more than 150 markets. Again, when I hear that, introduce the next generation of audiences, they're again, I keep thinking of David Tennant's comeback just being a bit of a gimmick. As
Yeah.
happy as I am to see him back, I'm also like, because you've regenerated into this Doctor, I worry that this is just a plain old gimmick. But then they add that the series is a perfect addition to our ever growing catalog of global
Dominate.
content.
Oh.
Content.
This will make a fine addition to my collection.
Content. That is the big word.
Content.
Content. We have reduced storytelling to content. Content is such a disgusting word.
You watched the shows. They're just content. Obi-Wan's content.
I mean, at this stage, they are what they say, content. They are just
That's what I'm saying.
things to be there, but that don't do anything for you. They don't enrich anything.
No.
So it's like this merger, this partnership has nothing to do with creativity. It's just about adding content, adding more bloody content. And again, like I said, you look at all the Disney Plus shows. What is
Pinocchio.
unmissable about Loki or WandaVision or Falcon and Winter Soldier or Obi-Wan or Book of Boba Fett?
Pinocchio.
The Lion King,
Lady and the Tramp. What else?
Lady and the
is Disney
Tramp,
Plus?
Aladdin,
Hocus Pocus 2?
Hocus Pocus 2.
What else did they show up? She-Hulk.
What's
else did I watch?
unmissable about them? They're totally missable.
What's gonna make you want to watch it
Nothing.
years down the line?
Nothing.
Again.
What's gonna make you
Yeah.
want to go back to it? No, it's something for the here and the now, for the right here, for this moment. But it's not storytelling for the ages. It's, I have 30 minutes to kill. And so when I see them reducing Doctor Who to content for their show, I'm like, fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck
That's
you.
absolutely right. I feel kind of weird just parroting what you're saying, but it's true. I agree.
Yeah,
It's really depressing.
it
thinking
is.
about it.
It is. And the other thing that's interesting to me is the idea of, this like I said, the Guardian art or the Telegraph article is all about this American makeover that Doctor Who was going to get, and there's also a part, it's like, does it need an American makeover?
Didn't it have an American? No, it didn't.
It did. It did in 1996.
I thought so. I
The
thought it was
Doctor
the
Who
movie.
TV movie starring Paul McGann was in partnership with Fox. And it had Sylvester McCoy. He regenerates into Paul McGann. and it had Eric Roberts as the master. And he's like a mob sort of guy, like Italian mob kind of guy. Very cliche, very silly. The show just, it's terrible. The TV movie is not very good. It's, I don't want to say unwatchable, but it's easy to understand why for a long time, like, people wouldn't didn't want to consider it canon. Um because
Has it become canon or no?
it is so bad. I think over time it has been, it's accepted, but there are lines in it, like when the doctor says, I'm half human. My mom was a human. So there's these weird, canon breaking things, in the show,
Who
you
wrote
know.
that?
But Biffer in the comment says new content, sorry, is suffocating. I feel like a hostage to the content. I mean, no, I
I
mean,
do too.
yeah, you know, it's
Ugh.
everything is like that. With the streaming, the dawn of streaming has pushed this, and
But
the age of social media. I mean, even what we're doing here, people are like, oh, this is what kind of content are we producing? Is this interesting content? You know, I don't know. I'm hoping that we're not just producing content, but producing something that's going to be like interesting, informative, thought provoking, not just mindless killing of time. You know?
time killers. No, that's what's so scary about it. You can get very overwhelmed, which is why when you asked me what did I watch this week, I didn't watch anything. I can't keep up with all this stuff, man. And I've been burned out so many times. So many times, watching the content,
Yeah.
right?
And I mean, I can't remember who it was. Someone was saying the other day on Twitter. It was some actor. They were saying how they were essentially begging people to go watch their show and to binge it within the first week, because
Oh, I remember
apparently,
that. Who was that?
I can't remember either, but that's apparently that's what Netflix are after. If you don't binge the show in the first week, then it's considered a dud.
I mean, you can start workshopping actual good, stories with people who have things to say that are talented and and cradle and you know, you know, what do you call that? Till the ground. I'm trying to put like a little bit more allegories there. But you know what I mean. Just make good things, and then people will come watch them. I mean, I don't know.
Mm.
It's very. I know that everyone says that it's so easy. Make good things. But I think that the business model is probably the biggest thing that's to blame, because they just want content.
Well, the streaming model, I think, is a very, I don't like it. I never have. I've never enjoyed Netflix dropping everything on one day, and then you have to scram to watch it all so that no one spoils it for you. But at the same time, I mean, well, look at the terminology that we use.
Yeah,
Dropping,
yeah.
dropping. You're just gonna drop it. You're dropping it. You're dropping a new album. You're dropping a new show. Then you're throwing it down. You're dropping it on the ground. Why? I don't want to drop something on the ground where it's disposable.
Mm.
It makes me think of old, like, 1920s and 30s and 40s pulp fiction. It was pulp. It was pulp paper, junk paper. You disposable. Our stories should not be disposable, because our in terms of like human existence and societal growth, stories are vital. you know? And if we reduce our stories to disposable content, what are we doing? What are we doing? Biffer in the chat says the biggest problem, people want reboots and cameos. I want original content and new movie stars. Biffer, here's the thing. I agree with half of this. You say people want reboots and cameos. I don't think people don't know what they want until they get it.
I think that's the big one that I've heard a lot of times, and I tend to agree with it.
Yeah, people don't know what they want until they get it. They think people didn't know they wanted Star Wars until they got it. People didn't know they wanted Star Trek until they got it. People didn't know that they wanted Terminator or I don't know, RoboCop or Back to the
RoboCop.
Future or
I
I
think
don't know,
everything you can say. Back to the Future, yeah. Anything.
know,
Just name any of those movies. They came out of that didn't come out of in like hype and excitement.
no, it came out of people didn't know that they wanted Home Alone
Every one
until
of these movies had an uphill battle.
yep until it came out. No one knew that they wanted this stuff, and yes, it's fun to sometimes reboot things and remake things and have your cameos. I'm not saying
But
there's no
that's all it
space for
is
that,
now.
but that is all it is. Cobra Kai is nothing but nostalgia whoring.
Okay, what's your stance on that? I've not seen
it's,
Ninja Boy. What's his name?
it's a
Karate
stupid
Kid.
it's a very stupid show that basically exists to show scenes from all the various Karate Kid movies and remind you about the Karate Kid. It's all it exists for, is to remind you of 1984 and Karate Kid. That's it.
Interesting.
That's it. It's so silly, so schlocky, so goofy. Um, yeah, that's it. Um, but what has happened is in this age of market research, the market research tells us, you know, you don't make your art by fucking committee. You know, it's not corporate interest that makes good art. It's not the public opinion that makes good art. It's the artist who makes good art. And at the moment, the artist is the last person with any sort of input in the creation of things, right? You don't see it. You look at these Star Wars movies or whatever, and you have however many writers are on board, and then you have however many producers are on board. I mean, there's that gag in when Red Letter Media reviewed Star Trek Discovery, and they counted 22 producers. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. You know, um, and so market research, because Iron Man was a hit, people liked it, and then people wanted
Disney took
more.
it. Disney took it.
Yeah, and then Disney took it, and people wanted more and more and more of this stuff. And it's like, well, I mean, yeah, there is a market for that, but you now dominate the market, and you have now suffocated all originality out of the room. Um, I think people do still want original content, and you see it when it is out there, when it lands. I mean, this might be a mixed bag, but I mean, Top Gun Maverick. Yes, it's a sequel, but it's original.
It's a good movie though.
It doesn't nostalgia bait. It's not just a reboot, and it's not just cameos. It's genuinely very good.
It's got something to say too.
Yeah, you know. Um, other movies, like, I mean, uh, in terms of like legacy sequels, Blade Runner 2049 knocks it out of the park again.
How many Blade Runner 2049s are we getting?
Not many. Those are the sequels that people really want when it comes to sequels. Some that those that progress the story, that add to it. You know what I mean? Um, Not things like Star Trek 2009
Ugh.
that doesn't add anything at all. That just reverts back to. And this is interesting. Is this kind of what you're getting at here, Biffer? I think is also slightly what Alan Moore was getting at in his recent article, when Alan Moore was saying that these superhero movies are sort of infantilizing people. It's this sort of, he was saying that it was kind of, it's everyone is sort of reverting back to this safe space of childhood, where they are, they know that they are safe in the hands of Batman, you know, um, and that sort of thing, where it's like, you know, what has happened over the last probably 15 to 20 years is that, in terms of pop culture cinema, the big summer blockbusters have really milked this sort of idea of nostalgia. And remember this. This is why South Park have the member berries, you know, um, because it became so absurd how everything was literally just about, going back to this stuff that you played with as a kid, and in a way becoming childish yourself. And you think of TV shows like New Girl, you know, harmless sitcom, right? But everyone in New Girl is a fucking idiot. Like, they are children. They're not adults. They're children.
Is this a new show?
No, no, no. New Girl came out like fucking ages ago, dude. Um, but like, it's got Zoe Deschanel in it, and yeah, and it's a show meant to be about grown-ups, but they're acting like children. But then you compare that to something like Friends, in which they are adults who sometimes act goofy.
Okay.
But now people just want adults who act like children. People just want to be big kids. They and I think that's really what Alan Moore was getting at in that particular instance, where he's like, this sort of obsession over, queuing out, down the street for Batman movies and stuff like that, um is is silly. It's feeding into this sort of, you know infantile state of mind, where, you know what are you really gaining from this stuff, other than just this comfy blanket of the past? You're not moving forward. Move forward. At the moment, cinema doesn't want to move forward. It just wants to be stuck in the past. It wants to be stuck in, remember this bit, remember this time, remember this, remember that. Move on.
Well, the industry definitely prioritizes that the most.
Hmm. Because they think it's easy money. Because they don't want to take a risk. They don't want to
They
risk.
never have, to be fair. But there, but I should read more about the history of the film industry. I actually have an audiobook or two that I'm getting through, but I do know that like there's always been in the past it's always been very um uh purpose, like it was what do you call that? It was between individuals, like if a movie was made or not, like
Mm,
I always go back to we always go back to George Lucas with Star Wars, where Alan Ladd Jr., who was the president of 20th Century Fox, they just had a personal conversation once or twice. He saw his films, both, THX 1138 and then American Graffiti, and he was very confused about Star Wars.
mm,
He didn't know what to make of it. I think everyone was, because of the time period and like what George Lucas was trying to do, which is completely out of vogue at the time.
yeah.
And then he just said, "I don't know what this Star Wars thing is. I have no idea if it's going to be good or not, but George Lucas has talent, and I believe that he'll do a good job because I've seen his previous movies and I've talked to him a few times, and I think that he's going to do great." So he just trusted George on an individual basis. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a big thing. I mean, that's one thing that Alan always says. Friend of mine, he's a computer
I
scientist.
thought I thought you meant Alan Moore.
No, no. Um, Bonnie. We had Bonnie on the show. Her husband, Alan Kay. It's
Yes.
you put your you believe in the individual, not the product,
Yeah.
the individual. And that's the thing is we no longer believe in the individual. It's all about the product. What do we think the product can do? Not what the individual can do. What
I
is this
think that
individual
is it.
capable of? It's the product. I mean, you see it in publishing all the time. I'm a writer, so I'm half of my life is spent in in book world, which I very rarely talk about on here. But like it's not about, oh, this individual is a good writer with a good idea. It's, oh, well, this isn't really what the market is right now. And it's like, well, you're missing out on good writers because you're so busy looking for the next copycat to your domestic noir where some alcoholic woman witnesses some murder, or whatever, and is being chased by someone in a mask who is revealing dark secrets about her past, and then you find
Ooh.
out that it's her twin sister who she never knew she had. You know what I mean? You get that crap like all the time, and it's tiring, it's boring, and the thing that's ironic to me is, you know, I mean, what I'm doing nowadays, when I'm looking for original stuff, I'm going to the past. You know, I'm reading books that I haven't read in the that are old books. I'm watching movies and TV shows. I mean, a TV show that we're currently finishing off is Spencer for Hire, a 1980s detective series starring Robert Urich. It's great. Also has Avery Brooks in it, who plays Benjamin Sisko in Star
I
Trek Deep
know. I
Space Nine.
know. Yeah.
You know, that show is wonderful. It's great. It's got action. It's got romance. It's got like incredible, like razor sharp, social
What?
commentary,
Oh.
and it's just it's engaging, and it's nothing like what's on right now because there is grit to it. And at the moment, there's nothing. I mean, there are some things out there that are gritty, but in the sort of pop culture sphere, the Netflixes, the Amazons, the Disney Pluses, what's on there right now was coming out in cinema. Very little of it is gritty and realistic. I mean, we watched The Gray Man the other day, the Russo brothers' new movie that's on Netflix. Awful, awful. It was
What are you
it was
talking
a
about? Remember when everyone after I'm sorry, I'm taking out of the tangent. Go on.
no. I was gonna say it was dreadful. There were scenes and looks that I'm like, you've copied this from Skyfall. You've copied this from James Bond. There's nothing, the story was just hitting all of the beats that it needed to hit to get you to the end. And it was like there was no character, there was no development, there was nothing to hook you. It was just, you know, action scene after action scene after cliche moment with you know uh, uh, Chris Evans acting like Chris Evans did in Knives Out, which is whenever he's a villain, he's just wanting to be like a knockoff Ryan Reynolds, wisecracking, yippy yappy individual that just annoys the hell out of me, But it's like, interesting idea, interesting premise, foiled by terrible writing. But and it's like these are the guys who did Endgame, who did the last big phase of Marvel.
I was gonna say, but remember when everyone in 2018, everyone said the Russos should do everything. They should do a Star Wars. They should do a James Bond. They should do a this because they'll do the best thing. Because and Infinity War, Endgame were the best movies out ever.
Mm.
It was
Oh,
they're like the Christopher Nolans
yeah, no,
of their age. No.
no,
No, but you
and
know what I mean. Like when as far as like
yeah,
people.
but I
Same
think the problem is
nonsense.
it's like with the Gray Man, it's like there was no investment, there was no attempt to write an interesting story about good characters. It's I can't remember who said this, but somewhere I heard somewhere. Then I really like this phrase. It's not a good story well told. It's just action beat after action beat and mindless, and that is disappointing. Because you can have loud action movies that still have interesting moments in there. Like I think Die Hard 3 is wonderful. You know, it not only does it have is it a great action movie with some ridiculous action in there, but it's got some things to say that I think are interesting, particularly around race relations. you know, and it's fascinating. Biffer in the comments says, I think the Atom Smasher in Switzerland opened a multiverse portal in 2010 to an alternate universe, and we are living in clown world. Buddy, you might be right. You might be right.
I
With the
mean, you
current
might be.
the way things are and the way they have been, I mean, it's funny. I have this really weird distinction where I do feel like there was like a line drawn in 2010. Like after 2010, everything just like changed dramatically. Like, you know, it was the MCU was beginning to dominate and take over, and it was just yeah, yeah, I don't know. There was something about 2010 where people sort of forgot that there was life before 2010 as well. Uh and it's just bonkers to me.
Dude,
Absolutely
you're not
bonkers.
the only one who actually said this. It's interesting to hear.
Yeah, no, I've
Clown
always
world.
felt this way. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on what that thing is, but yeah, no, I definitely definitely have a weird kind of feeling about 2010. I've always said like people don't remember life beyond 2010. They think the world began at 2010, and I think it's because when there's like various movies that have come out and things like that, people are like, "Oh, this is the first movie to do X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, "There's like 30,000 other of those movies out there. What are you fucking talking about? Like,
Absolutely.
come on, come on." Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I don't know, guys. That's my rant, really. That's my thought on
It's a good rant.
Doctor Who and all this other nonsense. I really, I guess I kind of cap off the Doctor Who thing. Like I think this American Makeover is a bad idea. I think of there are so many shows that have attempted to be Americanized and they have failed, or they've lost their charm. Um, I mean, there's a show. There's a show called in the UK called The Inbetweeners. That is, it's 3 seasons only. So hilarious about adolescent youth, just getting up to just nonsense and being smart mouthed and rude and immature and needing to kind of learn their way in life, kind of learning to mature over time. But it's great. The US tried to do a version of it, but barely lasted a season. You know, um, there is something to be said about trying to transpose these heavily British shows into an American context, and Americanizing them very rarely works. It didn't work with Doctor Who. It didn't work with the Inbetweeners. The Office almost got canceled. The first season of The Office is terrible, and it's bad because it basically follows beat for beat the exact you know outline of the UK Office, and it was
I mean,
boring.
that's where I started watching because like I'm a big fan of the original Office. That's the only
Same.
Office I watch. Whenever I rewatch it, I'm like, I'm watching the BBC one. So I remember back in the aughts when the Office, the American one, was so popular. Like families of my friends would get together every Wednesday or whenever it aired to watch it together and stuff like that. Every new episode. And I just didn't want to be part of that because I'm like, I watched the original. I don't need to watch the American one. I may have missed out in a few places on that regard, but the point still stands. I finally, like, who knows when, like in 2009, 2010, I decided, you know what, I'll give the American Office a shot. And
Hmm.
I picked, and where do I start? The beginning. And I'm like, this is the BBC Office. Why do I have to watch this? And I didn't continue.
Yeah, that's a shame. You should have done.
Well, it's their
Especially from
fault. The first
2009
season was so
when the
boring.
show's been out for decades, a decade, and like everyone loves it. You should have continued. That's ridiculous. Um, yeah, no, I mean, because
I'm the punching bag.
season two is where it finds its feet. Season two is where it finds its identity, because it was like it can't. They realized this can't be and shouldn't be a remake of it. It needs to be its own thing. You know, Michael Scott is not David Brent. And they needed to learn that. Um, and they're lucky. They're one of the few who accomplished it. But I mean, yeah, there's dozens of shows that have tried to be transposed or Americanized, and I think again they did it with Doctor Who in 1996 and didn't work.
It rarely works.
They
Rarely.
they were dipping their toes in those waters in 2011 when they did that big when Doctor Who they filmed in America with the silence and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The big stuff in Utah. They definitely sort of were attempting to do that. But I don't know. I don't know. All right, let me see if I can show you guys. You need to find a different way of sending me this because
Okay.
sending it to the chat like that is awkward in terms of saving it and stuff.
You can just drag it onto your desktop.
Does that work? Let's see. All right, there we go. There we go.
I'll figure out a way.
Okay, here we go. Let's remove that.
So here's my lovingly 90s style illustration. I had no ideas this time around. And I want you to pay attention to our legs.
I know I can see the tiny, tiny legs underneath. I'm a little concerned with how big you've made me. For fuck's sake.
What do you mean?
Jesus.
What do you
Take the
mean?
wheel.
Well, you wear a lot of clothes, man. Look at me. I'm like pale and
Well, we're both pale. We're both white. Anyway.
what did I
Jeez.
do? Here you go. I didn't. It's the shawl.
The shawl. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
No, it's that line. I know what you're looking at. You're looking at that line.
It's that.
Yeah, it's that. I didn't. That was not intentional.
It's ridiculous. Anyway. Well, I think that's pretty much it for tonight, guys. That's all I really got to say.
Yeah, I mean, that was a good explanation of things. I like that.
Let me just put it. I'm not excited. I'm not excited about Doctor Who and Disney. I'm not excited.
How can you be excited about anything
Yeah,
these days?
it's impossible. It's impossible. So next week's gonna be fun. We are going to be discussing Alien 3.
Yes. Oh, yes. I love Alien. I love Alien. I can't wait to hear what Luke has to say about it. You watched both versions.
Mm,
It's gonna
yes.
be great.
We have a guest joining us to discuss this, Nicholas Obregon. He's a crime writer, very, very cool dude. Also has a new podcast out called Faceless. Go listen to that. Yeah, so the question came up a long time ago. Is Alien 3 really a good movie or is it not?
So how did this idea come about?
I think the idea came out just because I was talking to Nick and he was like, "Oh, if you ever want someone to talk about Alien 3, that could be he'd be up for it." And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
I find it curious that he wanted Alien 3.
He likes Alien 3. I think another friend of mine, James, was saying on Twitter that, Alien 3 was actually a really good movie and it doesn't deserve the hate that it gets. So next
Don't
week is
say what.
going.
Don't say anything. But
No,
yeah,
I'm not. So next week is going to be sort of a retro breakdown of Alien 3, what we think of the cinematic, the theatrical release, but also the extended as well. And for anyone wanting to know what happened to our Death of Heroes discussion, that's been moved to November 13th. So Derek Miller will be back with us then. There was a conflict in scheduling that came up last minute, so this is why tonight I ranted about Doctor Who and the American Makeover. So there I go.
the
Okay.
American Makeover.
Okay. Anyway, make sure to like and subscribe because that's
Like
always
and
helpful.
subscribe. Like, subscribe, ring the bell. I don't know what they say. I'm so not used to saying these things.
Can tell. Yeah, do that stuff, because it's great. So I hope you all have a good night, and I'll see you when I see you.
We'll see you in Clown World,
Clown
where
World.
where, where we're all stuck in,
Indeed. All right.
unfortunately.
Bye, everyone.